I heard breathing in the dark. But no one had a mouth. I heard breathing in the dark. It was right behind me, slow and wet like someone blowing through a straw. My skin prickled. I held my breath to see if it would stop. The breathing kept coming. It was deep, close, and hungry sounding. I turned my head and saw nothing, no face, no mouth. The space where lips should be was smooth skin, like someone had erased a smile. The heartbeat in my ears thumped faster. My flashlight shook in my hand, and the thin beam painted the hallway in a white line. The breathing moved around me, circling, but every time I swept the light across a shape, there was only empty darkness and skin where mouths should be. I could feel it leaning toward my neck, smelling me, like a thirsty thing that could not call out. I tried to speak, but my voice was small and dry. The breathing stopped for a second. Then, right at my ear, something warm and soft pressed like a palm, and the dark whispered without word. I wanted to run, but my legs were turned to ice. And then, someone knocked from the inside of my own chest. I woke on the floor of my living room with the TV still on and a cartoon hero frozen mid-jump. My name was written in the steam on the kitchen window. The clock read 2:13 a.m. My throat hurt like I'd swallowed gravel. For a long time I just lay there and stared at the ceiling, breathing in and out like a measured machine, trying to tell myself what had happened was a dream. I told myself my mind had made the mouthless faces, because my brother had joked about them when we were kids, because stories sneak into your head. But the taste in my mouth was salty and metallic, and my nightshirt had a faint dampness at the collar. My name is Sam Carter. I'm 27 and I live in a small house on the edge of town in a place called Willow Ridge, which is the kind of town where people know your dog's name and where the houses keep their porches tidy. My apartment is upstairs over my garage. The living room faces a thin strip of maple trees and the quiet road. I work nights at a hospital lab, where I study tiny things under a microscope so other people can be well. I like quiet hours, the ones after midnight when the world softens. That made last night worse. I always understood silence. I had never expected silence to smell of breath. It started slow. 2 weeks before the night on the floor, small odd things happened. I would leave the kitchen light on and come back to find it off. Not a blown bulb, just off. Once I swear I heard a kid giggle at 3 a.m. in my laundry room, but when I checked, the washer was empty and the towels were folded neat. My neighbor, Mrs. Halvorsen, who waters her geraniums at dawn, said she saw footprints in the cold mud behind my trash cans. Small, like a child, she told me, squinting. I thought maybe raccoons. I set a cheap motion camera over the back door and left it running for a few nights. The footage showed nothing but wind and shadows. At the end of the third night, the camera turned itself sideways like it had been pushed, and the next morning I found the lens wiped with a clean, soft cloth. No prints, no fur, no paw marks, just smooth wipes and the camera pointing at the sky. I told my brother, Luke, who lives in Denver, and he laughed and called me overdramatic. Old houses make noises, he said. Maybe a raccoon or the pipes. But his laugh sounded thin over the phone. He asked me to come home for the weekend and I said no. Jobs and rent and the small stubborn reasons that make adults choose the city over family. He said, if you start hearing voices, call me. I promised. I started keeping my phone by the bed. Then the dreams began. They were the same dream every night. I stood in a hallway that smelled like mothballs and wet newspapers. The wallpaper peeled like dry skin. At the end of the hall was a door with old brass numbers, 1313. I would walk toward it and the floor would whisper under my shoes. The door would creak open just a crack and a dim light would spill out. I would lean in, and the light would show rows of chairs, and in each chair sat a person with their hands folded and their faces turned away. When the person shifted, a face would show blank. No lips, no teeth, just smooth skin where mouths should be. But they were breathing. In the dream, the sound of the breathing filled the room, and somehow I could feel it in my bones. I woke with my chest tight and a taste like pennies in my mouth. I tried to ignore the dreams. I read until my eyes crossed. I took long walks to the diner at the end of Main Street and ate blueberry pancakes with extra syrup, telling myself sugar and talkative cooks would chase the nightmares off. It worked sometimes. For a night or two I slept plain, ordinary sleep, and when the morning came I felt normal. But the breathing followed. I started finding small things in the house move. The family photo on the mantel, a picture of my mom, my brother, and me at the lake, would be facing down when I came home. The radio would be tuned to static for an hour, then snap back to the top of the dial as if someone had been searching. Once, more disturbing than anything else, I woke to find a small child's shoe on the kitchen table. It was a red sneaker, tiny, sticky with a dried mud line, though I have no children and my neighbor's kids had bigger feet. There was no note, no explanation. On the night before the breathing in the dark, I stayed up late writing a report for work. The house was quiet. I remember pausing to listen and thinking about how nice it felt, the kind of quiet that lets you hear the little things. The refrigerator humming, the rain tapping at the roof. I fell asleep on the couch with the report still open on my laptop and the TV on low. I dreamed the hallway again. I dreamed the mouthless faces. I dreamed that someone put a hand to my chest and listened, like they were checking my heartbeat for a secret. When I woke on the floor, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Call me when you can, honey. Bring the house key." Her messages were filled with a cautious, gentle worry that mothers carry. I sat up and my head spun a little. My throat was sore. I rubbed the back of my neck and felt a faint warmth under my shirt, like someone had touched me there. I turned on the lamp and the light stabbed the dark and made it a room again. The living room smelled faintly of lavender and something else, old books? And the TV screen flickered to a weather report about a storm coming in. I laughed then, a small, shaky sound, because laughter felt safer than silence. I picked up the motion camera and checked it. The last file was just a smear of white and then nothing. I texted my brother to tell him what happened. He wrote back faster than usual. "Get out. Now." His message made my skin crawl. I asked him why. He said he'd seen something online, a thread about houses where people heard breathing and the posts were full of warnings. I rolled my eyes, feeling foolish and a little proud of myself for not wanting to be scared. I told him I was fine, that he was overreacting. He sent a single word: lock. I locked the front door. I locked the back door. I double-checked the deadbolt and turned the chain on the inside. It felt ridiculous, like a child wrapping a blanket around themselves for protection. I turned off the TV and sat with the house under my skin, every creak a voice. Outside, the maple trees whispered to each other. The storm the weather person mentioned was moving in, a far-off rumble that made the windows hum. I tried to sleep, but my mind replayed the dream, the rows of mouthless faces, the way they breathed without sound. I promised myself I would leave in the morning if anything else happened. I promised myself I would not be ridiculous. Then the breathing came back. It started at the back of the house and moved toward me like a slow tide. It was loud and close and wrong. I clutched the blanket and the breath brushed my hair. I thought of the child's shoe and the cloth on the camera, of my mother's message, of Luke saying lock. The breathing was everywhere and nowhere. The flashlight lay on the coffee table, and I reached for it. My hand shook. The light slid across the wall, across the framed family photo, and froze on the empty space between the couch and the hallway. There was nothing there. Then the breathing stopped, and I heard a small sound like someone trying to find a word and failing. I got up, slow and careful, and walked to the hallway. The beam of the flashlight showed the peeling wallpaper and the runner rug, and my own shadow stretched long and thin. The hallway was empty. I stepped forward, and the beam painted the outline of a small shoe print in dust at the threshold, the same shape as the red sneaker on my table. I knelt and touched the print. It felt like chalk dust under my finger. Something else moved in front of me. The air turned cold, and the hairs on my arm rose. I swung the flashlight and caught a face in the doorway, smooth skin where a mouth should be, the eyes open and looking at me like a question. It was standing very still, the kind of still that makes the world hold its breath. Then it tilted its head, and the breathing started again, right behind me, and I knew, with a clear, terrible certainty, that whatever was breathing could not speak. A soft, childlike voice, not coming from a mouth, said my name.